Conditions of Victoria post the gold strike. Welcome back to the early Victorian period, and now we have seen what Melbourne and its surrounds were like in that time. Hi, I'm Michael Beashall, Australian historical fiction writer, and I'd like to paint you a picture of what Victoria was like. Now, in J. Armour's book, The Diggings, the Bush and Melbourne of 1864, we note the following. At Williamstown, by the end of 1852, there was a forest of masts as ships from every port in the United Kingdom, from San Francisco and from the continent of Europe, squeezed together, waiting to disembark their passengers. Visitors to the wharves cried out in astonishment, and still they come, they called. In the inns of Melbourne were crammed full. Some slept in beds, some on tabletops, some on chest of drawers, some in passageways, and some lay down between the barrels on Coles Wharf. Now, on the south bank of the Yarra, a canvas camp sprang up. There each night, drunken men staggered home, fumbling for support from the calico walls of the tent, offering to knock anybody silly. In the church of St. Paul, Bishop Perry sang on Sunday a hymn of praise and thanksgiving to his God for overcoming the sharpness of death and opening the kingdom of heaven to all believers. In Collins Street, in the centre of Melbourne, mobs of unwashed, unshaven diggers toggled up the broadcloth of gentlemen, poked their noses against the shop windows, behind which rapacious and cunning jewellers displayed showy, trashy trinkets. Huge rings bring sparkle on grubby clay-stained fingers. Women recruited from the whorehouses of Melbourne were decked out in bright, gaudy silks and satins for a romp around the streets in Melbourne. Now, one digger brought up the entire stock of champagne in a hotel, poured it into a horse trough, and asked the passers-by to take a swill. Another ordered the publican to wash the counter of the bar with claret. Another lined up all the glasses in a hotel in a bar, smashed them to smithereens with a stockwhip, and then offered to pay for the damages. Money was everywhere. Some diggers paid for drinks with nuggets, saying they would be insulted if the publicans offered them change. Go figure. Some lit their pipes with banknotes. Others put banknotes into their sandwiches and ate the whole lot. A gaily dressed woman kissed a clergyman on the mouth in Collins Street as passers-by tittered, and the tipsy companions encouraged her with those Australian urgings as "good on you" and "you will do me." In J.H. Kerr's Glimpses of Life at Victoria, a barber who had soaped and lathered faces in the good old easy-going times before the discovery of gold, and cursed his fate as the proprietor of a plot of ungrateful soil, found himself transported from the lather and the bristles into £4,000 a year. A butcher, his soul was said to be encased in the fat of boiling down days, suddenly found his line of business one of the best paid in the colony and became great in purse. He became part of the furor of all the money, getting part of the vulgarisation of the wealthy classes in society, which became the test of the man's position. As one observer put it, it is not what you were, but what you are that is the criterion. Your father may have been my Lord of England, and over it goes for nothing in this equalising colony of gold, beef and mutton. A story was being told in the drawing rooms of Melbourne of a squatter in true blue gentleman who had offered a digger a shilling to lift a bag of sugar on a dray. The digger looked at him for a moment and then, putting his foot on the stump, said, "There, tie my shoe and I'll give you 5 shillings. Plebeianism of the rankest kind was growing stronger every day. One woman asked plaintively whether the devils of Milton Byron of Goethe would equal the digger larrikins of Melbourne. According to Colonius, Williams A. Bagot, Chief Justice of Victoria, believed the time it had come for him as a Christian gentleman to remind those drunkards, fornicators and vulgarians that God did not meet the eye at such folly and extravagance. The gold rush had encouraged a libertine to gratify his passions in every excess of dissipation. It was depriving the world of men of labour and so destroying that plantation society which preserved rank and social distinction and provided a bastion against those vulgar dissipates from the gold fields who threatened to bring everything down to their level. As a Christian who believed man could avail but little in the face of such evil, there was hope above. God could and would disperse these mists and tempers. These words today sound arcane and somewhat odd, but in the middle of the 19th century, the men of cloth were vehement in their disdain of their fellow creatures. And these men were not alone. Most of society who was not swept up in the gold rush had similar views, and fear permeated throughout society as crime rose. So that is a snapshot of Melbourne in the months and years immediately after the gold rush. The episodes that have been mentioned did occur. They're not stories. We will see you in the next video. Thank you for your interest in watching.